The early 1980s was the Wild West of video game history. There were few laws established yet in this genre of entertainment, and every major company to independent businessmen wanted to rape the consumer's wallet. The industry was very low-brow at the time, and underhanded business methods were aplenty. For example, companies and developers would constantly plagiarise and copy each other's work. Piracy was rife amongst gamers, and it was considered the norm. And when it came to game releases, there was absolutely no quality control. It was an era you could get away with releasing pretty much anything into stores. There was games on the market back then that was even worse than Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs. A perfect example of this was for the ZX Spectrum alone. There were over 24,000 games released, and that was just a British computer. 24 bloody thousand games! Imagine trying to collect all of those! The games industry of the 1980s was a lawless society. It was basically the Somalia of the business world. And with a lack of quality clearly evident, this eventually led to what was called the video game crash of 1983, where people got bored of games and assumed there was no more than a passing fad, and eventually all the Ataris around the world were switched off and put away. Consumers no longer trusted games, as they were used to being fed complete crap. So they all went back to listening to radio dramas or whatever other rubbish people used to do before I was born. However, over in Japan, Nintendo on the other hand knew they had a quality product, but now they had to work out how to regain people's trusts and get them to buy into their product. So eventually, Nintendo thought of a way to regain the people's trust, and the answer was lying. Upon release overseas, they renamed their Famicom family computer the Nintendo Entertainment System and made it look like a VCR. They also packaged the console with a light gun and a pretty useless piece of crap called Rob the Robot. This was all done so they could talk to retailers and say, "Don't worry, it's not a games console, it's just a toy." So Nintendo was now selling entertainment systems all over the United States and Europe. Except for the UK, that is, where the only place you could buy them was in obscure places like Boots Pharmacy. Seriously, what was a pharmacy doing selling entertainment systems? Excuse me a second, I'm just going to go shopping at Henny and Massey to buy myself some lamb chops for dinner tonight. Back in the day, when we bought a new game, there were few ways of knowing if it was any good. In store, we used to look at the box art for a game. This, however, would not give you any indication whatsoever what the actual game would look like if you played it, and back then, unfortunately, this would be all you had to go on when making a purchase. To help win consumers' trust, another clever marketing tactic was used by Nintendo to separate them from the competition. This was the way in which they presented the box art for their games. These games are known today as the Nintendo Entertainment System's black box games, and these are amongst the original releases on the system. Unlike games on other systems, where the box art was a complete misrepresentation of the product they were selling, Nintendo were straight to the point with their boxes, and they display ugly pixel art similar to that you would get in the game you purchased. Although ugly, they were at least eye-catching, and over the years have gained a lot of charm. Even though these boxes were originally made with the intention of not getting consumers' hopes up when purchasing a new game, they have now become iconic pieces of gaming history. Even more than 30 years later, with enthusiasm and nostalgia on the rise for retro games, these boxes are still as recognisable as ever. These covers have become symbolic cultural icons as part of the very fabric of both mainstream gaming and popular culture itself. Who would have thought something so simple at the time would have been so impactful on the world all these years on? If you would like to see some of my reviews on NES games, then click one of the annotations preceding this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheerio!